My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I stared at the phone screen. The words blurred together, then sharpened into focus, each message a dagger twisting deeper into my chest. "Last night was incredible," she'd written to him. "I can't stop thinking about you." Him. My best friend. Grayson. The man I trusted with everything. The man I'd laughed with just yesterday, clapped on the back, called my brother. And her. Marlo. My wife. The woman who slept beside me every night, who kissed me goodbye every morning, who promised me forever. The message thread went on, weeks of conversations I never knew existed, hidden in some app I'd never heard of until 10 minutes ago when her phone slipped from her purse and landed face up on our kitchen counter. "I've never felt this alive," another message read. "What we have is electric." I scrolled up, my thumb moving on autopilot even though every cell in my body screamed to stop, to throw the phone, to unsee what I'd already seen. But I couldn't. There were photos. Not explicit, but intimate in ways that made my stomach turn. Her smile in those pictures looked different than any smile she'd given me in months, maybe years. Bright. Unguarded. Happy. When did she stop looking at me like that? When did I become the person she had to hide from instead of run to? 3 months. That's how long this had been going on according to the timestamp on the first message. 3 months of lies. 3 months of working late, and girls' nights, and "I'm just tired, honey." 3 months since I made that stupid, arrogant boast at Derek's barbecue, standing around the grill with a beer in my hand, chest puffed out like some peacock showing off his feathers. "My wife would never cheat," I'd said, laughing at the other guys sharing their divorce horror stories. "Marlo's different. She's loyal. Faithful. I'd bet my life on it." Ann Grayson, standing right there beside me, had smiled that weird smile and said, "Want to test that theory?" I thought he was joking. We all laughed. But then later that night, after everyone left and I was cleaning up Solo cups from the backyard, he pulled me aside. "I'm serious, Law," he'd said, using that nickname only he called me. "Let me test her faithfulness. I'll try to pursue her, nothing crazy, just see if she takes the bait. If she's as loyal as you claim, you'll have proof. If not, better to know now than 20 years down the road, right?" I'd been drunk, stupid, and so damn sure of myself. So sure that Marlo would shut him down immediately, that she'd tell me about his advances, that we'd laugh about it together. I shook his hand. Actually shook his hand on a deal to test my own wife's fidelity like she was some kind of experiment. What kind of man does that? What kind of husband gambles with his marriage because his ego is too big to see the cracks already forming in the foundation? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. The bathroom door upstairs clicked open. Water shut off. Marlo hummed something cheerful, oblivious, as her footsteps creaked across the old floorboards of our bedroom. My heart hammered against my ribcage so hard I thought it might burst through. The phone was still in my hand, still unlocked, still displaying evidence of a betrayal so complete it rewrote everything I thought I knew about my life. I had maybe 30 seconds before she came downstairs. 30 seconds to decide what to do with this information that was currently ripping me apart from the inside out. Confront her now? Pretend I never saw it? Dig deeper first to understand the full scope of the lies? Her footsteps reached the top of the stairs. Each step down sounded like a countdown. 10 steps to the bottom. 10 steps until I had to look her in the eyes knowing what I now knew. 9. 8. My throat closed up. 7. 6. I couldn't breathe. 5. 4. Should I put the phone down? 3. Should I throw it at her? 2. Should I say something? 1. She rounded the corner into the kitchen, her hair still damp from the shower, wearing my old college sweatshirt that she always stole, looking so perfectly normal, so perfectly like the woman I married 8 years ago that for a split second I wondered if I'd imagined everything. Then her eyes landed on the phone in my hand. Her phone. And her face did something I'd never seen before. Every muscle froze. The color drained from her cheeks. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. We stood there in our kitchen, the kitchen where we'd shared thousands of meals, where we danced on lazy Sunday mornings, where she told me she was pregnant with the baby we lost, where we'd rebuilt our lives after that grief, and everything that space had meant evaporated in the silence stretching between us. "Lawson," she finally whispered, and even my name sounded different coming from her mouth now, tainted with guilt and fear and something else I couldn't identify. "I can explain." But before she could say another word, before I could decide whether I even wanted to hear her explanations, her phone buzzed in my hand. Another message. From him. And this one made everything so much worse because it wasn't about last night or secret meetings or whatever physical betrayal had already happened. This message said, "Tell him yet? Or are you still playing the devoted wife? Either way, I'll be waiting. The barbecue had been Derek's idea. 4th of July celebration, he'd said, good old-fashioned American gathering with burgers, beer, and that aggressive patriotism that only comes out one day a year. His backyard was packed with people I'd known since college, guys from work, neighbors, that strange mix of relationships you accumulate when you stay in the same town your whole life. I'd arrived early to help set up, Marlo beside me carrying her famous potato salad that everyone always raved about. She'd squeezed my hand as we walked up the driveway. Love you, she'd said, simple and easy, the way she always did. I said it back without thinking because that's what you do after 8 years of marriage. The words become automatic, like breathing. Grayson was already there when we arrived, leaning against Derek's deck railing with that confident posture he always carried, like the world was a stage built specifically for his performance. We'd been friends since freshman year of college, bonded over late-night study sessions and too much cheap beer, survived our 20s together, stood up in each other's weddings. If someone had asked me that morning who I trusted most in the world besides Marlo, I would have said Grayson without hesitation. Funny how trust works. You build it brick by brick over years, then watch it crumble in seconds. There's my guy, he called out, pulling me into one of those brief bro hugs men do where you slap each other's backs twice and separate quickly. He nodded at Marlo. Looking beautiful as always, March. She smiled, thanked him, headed inside to drop off the potato salad. I watched her go, admiring the way she moved, feeling lucky. Genuinely lucky. That was the cruelest part looking back. In that moment, I'd felt like the most fortunate man alive. The afternoon melted into evening the way summer days do, that golden light filtering through tree leaves, the smell of charcoal and grilled meat hanging in the air, kids running wild through the sprinklers while adults pretended to supervise. Conversations flowed easy, lubricated by alcohol and good weather. At some point we ended up in our usual circle. Me, Grayson, Derek, Matt, and Jonas. The brotherhood, we jokingly called ourselves, though we were all pushing 40 now, well past the age where brotherhood meant anything beyond occasional texts and these increasingly rare gatherings. Matt was complaining about his recent divorce. Second one. I swear to God, man, I'm done with marriage, he said, gesturing wildly with his beer bottle. Both times same story. Everything's great until it's not, then suddenly she's got a lawyer and I'm living in a studio apartment eating cereal for dinner. Derek and Jonas nodded sympathetically. They'd both been through it too. Divorce was like a plague in our friend group, spreading from one marriage to the next, leaving wreckage in its wake. Not all women are like that, I'd said, and I heard the smugness in my own voice but couldn't stop it. Some marriages actually work. Some wives actually keep their vows. The guys looked at me with expressions ranging from amusement to pity. You're still in the honeymoon phase, Jonas said. Wait until year 15, 20. See how faithful she is when you're old and boring and some younger guy pays attention to her. I'd laughed. Actually laughed at the suggestion. Marlo's not like that. She's loyal. Devoted. I'd bet my life on it. That's when Grayson's expression changed. Something flickered across his face, there and gone so fast I almost missed it. That's a pretty big bet, he said quietly. You really that sure? I nodded, doubling down on my arrogance because backing down felt like admitting doubt I didn't have. Absolutely sure. No other man could take her from me. She's mine completely. The words tasted like victory then. Now they tasted like poison. Grayson tilted his head, studying me with an intensity that should have warned me something was off. Interesting, he said. What if we tested that? The party wound down around midnight. Families with kids left first, then the older couples until it was just the core group sitting around Derek's fire pit, that end-of-night atmosphere where conversations get deeper and defenses drop. Marlo had gone home hours earlier, saying she was tired, kissing my cheek and telling me not to stay out too late. I'd watched her car pull away, still feeling that warm glow of contentment, still riding high on my earlier declaration of her unwavering faithfulness. Still so stupidly, blindly confident. Grayson brought it up again once it was just us guys. I'm serious about that test, he said, poking at the fire with a stick, sparks dancing up into the dark sky. You're so sure Marlo would never stray. Let me prove you right. I'd had too much to drink by then, that perfect amount where bad ideas sound reasonable and consequences feel distant. What are you even talking about? I asked, though part of me already knew and part of me was curious despite myself. He laid it out simply. He'd pursue Marlo, nothing extreme, just friendly attention that gradually became more. Text her. Invite her to coffee. See if she took the bait. If she shuts me down immediately, you win. You get to be right. Your marriage is as solid as you claim. But if she doesn't, if she's even a little bit receptive, Don't you want to know now rather than later? The logic felt airtight in my drunk brain. I'd prove all these divorced, cynical guys wrong. I'd demonstrate that real love and real commitment still existed. Marlo would pass this test with flying colors, and I'd have evidence to shut down their skepticism forever. 1 month, I said, and I remember my voice sounded strange to my own ears, like someone else was speaking. You get 1 month to try. But you have to actually try. No half effort. Really pursue her like you're interested. Make it a genuine test. Grayson extended his hand across the fire. 1 month. And when she stays loyal, you buy me dinner and gloat about it for the rest of our lives. Deal? I shook his hand. His grip was firm, his eyes reflecting the firelight in a way that made him look almost demonic, but I dismissed that observation as drunken paranoia. We shook on my marriage like it was a sports bet. Like Marlo was a prize to be won or lost rather than a person, a partner, the woman I'd vowed to honor and cherish. The guys hooped and hollered, made jokes about how I just signed up for the world's stupidest experiment. Your funeral, man, Matt said, raising his beer. When this backfires, don't say we didn't warn you. But I wasn't worried. I was certain. So absolutely certain that I slept like a baby that night, crawling into bed beside Marlo, wrapping my arm around her waist, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, feeling her unconsciously curl into me the way she always did. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing. A text from Grayson. Day 1. Let's see how loyal she really is. Attached was a screenshot. He'd already sent Marlo a message. Hey, been thinking about our conversation at the party? Would love to grab coffee this week and continue it. Just us. What do you say? My stomach did a small flip. This was really happening. I'd really agreed to this. But alongside that flicker of doubt came excitement. This was it. The moment where Marlo would prove everyone wrong. She'd either ignore the message or tell me about it immediately, and we'd laugh at Grayson's failed attempt. Except she didn't tell me about it. I waited all morning. She made breakfast, we ate together, she talked about her plans for the day, normal domestic conversation, and she never once mentioned that my best friend had asked her to coffee. When I left for work, I kissed her goodbye, searching her face for any sign of guilt or confusion. Nothing. Just her usual smile, her usual, love you, have a good day. As I drove away, I checked my own phone. Grayson had sent another screenshot. Marlo's response. That sounds nice. How about Wednesday at that cafe downtown? The one with the good lattes? She'd said yes. And she hadn't told me. Wednesday came faster than I expected. I'd convinced myself over those few days that coffee meant nothing, that Marlo saw it as purely friendly, that I was reading too much into her acceptance. After all, she'd known Grayson almost as long as she'd known me. They'd always been friendly. Why wouldn't she grab coffee with him? Except she still hadn't mentioned it. Tuesday night at dinner, I'd given her the perfect opening. Heard from Grayson lately? I'd asked casually, pushing pasta around my plate. She'd looked up, fork halfway to her mouth, and said, Grayson? No, why? The lie came so easily to her lips I almost missed it. Almost convinced myself I'd misread the text screenshots. But I hadn't. Wednesday morning she dressed differently. Nothing dramatic, but I noticed. She usually worked from home in leggings and oversized shirts, but today she wore jeans that fit perfectly and a blouse I'd bought her for her birthday. She put on makeup, not a lot, but more than usual. Meeting? I asked. Video call with a client, she said smoothly. Want to look professional. Another lie. I counted them now, stacked them up like evidence in a case I was building against my own wife. 2 lies in as many days. Maybe more I hadn't caught. I told her I had to work late, which was true but also strategic. I wanted to give her space to meet Grayson without feeling rushed, wanted this test to be as authentic as possible. That's what I told myself anyway. The truth was messier. Part of me hoped she'd cancel. Part of me hoped she'd go and it would be completely innocent. And a small, dark part of me wanted to catch her doing something wrong, wanted evidence that I wasn't crazy for doubting her, proof that my instincts were right. Grayson sent updates throughout the day like he was filing a field report. She confirmed for 2 o'clock. Then later, she just arrived. Looks nervous. Then, she's laughing at my jokes. This is going well. Each message felt like a paper cut, small but stinging. I tried to focus on work, buried myself in spreadsheets and conference calls, but my mind kept drifting. What were they talking about? Was she telling him how ridiculous this whole thing was? Was she texting me right now to say Grayson was acting weird? I checked my phone every few minutes. Nothing from Marlo. Finally, around 4 o'clock, Grayson called. You sitting down? he asked, and his voice had this quality I couldn't identify. Satisfaction? Pity? It went really well, man. Better than I expected. She stayed for 2 hours. We talked about everything. Her job, her frustrations, things I don't think she tells you. When I dropped a light compliment about how she looked, she didn't deflect. She blushed, smiled, touched my arm. I suggested we do it again next week and she agreed immediately. He paused. I think your wife is lonely, Law. And lonely people make mistakes. I hung up without responding. My hands were shaking again, that same tremor that would become familiar in the weeks ahead. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to reject him. Tell him off. Come home and report his inappropriate behavior. Instead, she came home that evening acting completely normal, kissing my cheek, asking about my day, starting dinner like nothing had happened. I watched her move around our kitchen and felt like I was looking at a stranger. How was your video call? I asked. Oh, fine, she said, not even looking at me. You know how clients are. 3 lies now. And counting. That night in bed, she curled against me like always, her breathing evening out as she fell asleep while I stared at the ceiling. Her phone was on the nightstand charging. I could reach it, could check it, could see what she and Grayson had texted about after their coffee date. But I didn't. Not yet. Because checking would mean admitting this test had already gone off the rails, that my confidence had been misplaced, that maybe all those divorced guys at the barbecue weren't cynical. Maybe they were just experienced. The next morning I saw them together. Not planned. I'd left work early for a dentist appointment and decided to grab lunch at that downtown cafe Marlo had mentioned. The one with good lattes. I don't know what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe I just wanted to visit the scene of their meeting, convince myself it was innocent. But when I walked past the large front window, there they were. Sitting at the same table they must have sat at Wednesday. Marlo was laughing, really laughing, her head thrown back, eyes closed, hand over her mouth the way she did when something genuinely delighted her. When was the last time I'd made her laugh like that? I stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching through the glass like some creepy stalker, watching my wife be happy with my best friend. They didn't see me. Too absorbed in their conversation. Grayson leaned forward, said something that made her blush. She reached across the table and playfully swatted his arm. Flirting. That's what I was watching. My wife flirting with another man. The test wasn't theoretical anymore. It wasn't some drunk bet at a barbecue. It was real and happening, and I'd orchestrated the whole thing. My phone buzzed. Text from Grayson. Ran into Marlo downtown. Having a quick coffee. Funny coincidence. Except it wasn't a coincidence. She'd come to meet him. Dressed up again. Made time in her schedule. And now they were both lying about it. Are you enjoying the story so far? If you haven't already, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us continue bringing you these emotional journeys every week. The lies multiplied like cancer cells. Subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. Working late became her new favorite phrase. She who used to be home by 6 every night suddenly had evening obligations 3-4 times a week. Her phone, which used to sit casually on counters and tables, now stayed glued to her side. She took it to the bathroom. Kept it face down. Changed the screen so I couldn't see notifications. When I asked about her day, her answers became vague. Generic. Fine. Busy. Same old thing. I started paying attention to details I'd previously overlooked. She bought new perfume, something expensive I'd never smelled before. Started going to the gym, which she'd always hated, but suddenly she was there 4 mornings a week. Her body changed, toned in ways that should have made me happy but instead filled me with dread because I knew she wasn't doing it for me. She was doing it for him. Everything was for him now. I'd become background noise in my own marriage, a supporting character in a story where I used to be the lead. Grayson kept me updated like a wildlife documentarian observing his subject. She texted me good morning today. She asked if I wanted to grab dinner this weekend. She opened up about problems in your marriage. Said you've been distant, distracted, that you don't really see her anymore. That last update stung the most because it was true. I had been distant. But I'd been distant because I was watching this test unfold, waiting for her to prove me right, growing more paranoid with each passing day. Chicken and egg. Which came first? My neglect or her wandering? Did my arrogance create the conditions for her betrayal, or was she always capable of this? We were sitting at dinner one Thursday evening, week 3 of this nightmare I'd created, when she brought up Grayson casually. You know, I've been meaning to tell you, she said, twirling spaghetti on her fork. I've been hanging out with Grayson a bit lately. Getting coffee, stuff like that. He's been really supportive while I figure out some work stuff. Finally she was telling me. I sat up straighter, ready for the full confession, ready to end this test and reassure her and fix whatever was broken between us. That's good, I said carefully. What kind of work stuff? She shrugged. Just feeling stuck, questioning if I'm on the right career path. He's a good listener. She paused. Is that weird? That we've been hanging out? Here it was. My opening. I could tell her yes, it was weird, it made me uncomfortable, I wanted her to stop seeing him. I could end this whole thing right now. But instead I heard myself say, no, not weird. Grayson's a good friend. I'm glad he's there for you. Why did I say that? Pride? Stupidity? Some twisted need to see how far this would go? Her face relaxed. Good. I was worried you'd be jealous. She smiled. But I know you trust me. Trust. The words sat between us like a loaded gun. I trusted her so much I'd let another man pursue her. She trusted me so much she was lying about the extent of their relationship. We were both performing trust while betraying it in different ways. That night, after she fell asleep, I finally did what I'd been resisting. I took her phone from the nightstand, typed in her passcode. The same passcode it had always been, our anniversary, because she hadn't even bothered to change it. Didn't think she needed to. Didn't think I'd check. But the text thread with Grayson wasn't there. I scrolled through her messages. Work contacts. Her mom. Her sister. Friends from college. But no Grayson. She'd deleted it. Or hidden it. I checked her email. Nothing. Social media. Nothing. She was being careful now, covering her tracks. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, her phone glowing in my hands, and felt something inside me break. This was worse than finding evidence. This was confirmation that there was evidence to hide. That whatever was happening had progressed beyond casual coffee dates. That she knew it was wrong and was actively concealing it. I opened her app store, scrolled through her recently downloaded apps. There. Something called Secure Chat. An encrypted messaging service I'd never heard of. I clicked on it. Password protected. A different password than her main phone. I tried our anniversary. Wrong. Her birthday. Wrong. I was about to give up when I tried Grayson's birthday. It opened, and there they were. Hundreds of messages. Weeks of conversation. Starting innocent, progressively less so. You make me feel alive again. I can't stop thinking about our afternoon together. This is dangerous, but I don't want to stop. My eyes blurred. I scrolled faster, looking for something concrete, smoking gun evidence that would give me permission to feel the rage building in my chest. And then I found it. A message from yesterday. Tomorrow night. He's working late again. Come to the house at 8. Grayson's response, are you sure? What if he comes home? Her answer, he won't. And honestly, part of me doesn't care anymore. I want you there. In our home. In our bed. I want all of you. The phone slipped from my hands, clattered onto the hardwood floor. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the quiet bedroom. Marlo stirred beside me, mumbled something, rolled over. I sat frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to process what I just read. Tomorrow night. She was planning to bring him into our home. Into our bed. The bed where we'd made love, where we'd held each other through grief, where we'd built 8 years of intimacy and trust. She was going to desecrate it all because I'd been arrogant enough to think she needed testing. I picked up the phone, took screenshots of everything, sent them to myself, deleted the evidence of my snooping. Put the phone back on the nightstand. Crawled back into bed beside my wife, who was planning to cheat on me in approximately 24 hours. And I lay there in the dark, my mind racing through scenarios. Confront her now. Confront her tomorrow before Grayson arrived. Let it happen and catch them in the act. Or, and this was the thought that kept circling back, let it happen and say nothing. Let her have her affair. See how long she could maintain the double life. Watch her destroy us while pretending everything was fine. The next morning she was cheerful. Made pancakes, my favorite. Kissed me longer than usual. Love you, she said, and I wondered if she felt guilty or if the extra affection was excitement for what she had planned later. Love you too, I responded automatically, and the words felt like ash in my mouth. I went to work. Sat through meetings. Answered emails. Pretended to be a functional human being while my entire world collapsed in slow motion. At 7:30 that evening, I texted Marlo that I'd be home late. Server issues at work, might be midnight before I got back. She responded immediately. No problem. Take your time. I'll probably go to bed early anyway. Long day. Another lie. The casual ease of it was almost impressive. 8 o'clock came and went. I sat in my car in the parking garage at work, staring at my phone, waiting for Grayson to text me about his plans. But he'd gone silent. No updates. No field reports. Radio silence. Because this wasn't part of the test anymore. This was real betrayal, and he knew telling me would end our friendship, possibly end him. At 8:15 I started my car. Drove toward home. Every red light felt like a sign from the universe telling me to turn around, to give myself more time before confirming what I already knew. But I kept driving. Turned onto our street. Saw a car parked 2 houses down. His car. He was here. In my home. With my wife. Possibly in my bed. I parked at the curb, sat with the engine running, trying to decide what came next. And then my phone buzzed. Not a text. A notification from our home security system. The one I'd installed last year after a string of neighborhood break-ins. The one with cameras. The one I'd completely forgotten about until this exact moment. Motion detected in the master bedroom. I opened the app with shaking hands, and there on the small screen was the answer to every question I'd been afraid to ask. I couldn't look away from the screen. The camera angle showed most of our bedroom, the bed we'd picked out together at that furniture store downtown, arguing playfully about firmness levels and thread counts. Now 2 figures moved across that bed in ways that made my vision tunnel. Marlowe's laugh carried through the tinny phone speaker, breathless and wild, a sound I hadn't heard directed at me in so long I'd forgotten she was capable of it. Grayson said something I couldn't make out, and she responded by pulling him closer, her hands tangled in his hair, her body arching in ways that told me this wasn't their first time. This wasn't even close to their first time. You don't move together like that, don't anticipate each other's rhythms like that without practice. Without repetition. How many times had they done this? How many working late nights had actually been hotel rooms? How many mornings had she showered beside me, washing away evidence of him before kissing me goodbye? The betrayal had layers I was only beginning to comprehend, each one worse than the last, each one rewriting months of memories I'd thought were real. I saved the video. Didn't want to, felt sick doing it, but some rational part of my brain knew I'd need evidence. For what? Divorce proceedings? Public humiliation? Revenge? I didn't know yet. Couldn't think that far ahead. Could barely think at all. My hands moved on autopilot, downloading the file, sending it to my email, making sure it existed somewhere besides this stupid app that might glitch or delete or somehow erase proof that my entire life was a lie. The video kept playing. I should have turned it off, should have walked into that house and ended it right there, but I was paralyzed. Frozen in my car like some pathetic voyeur watching his own destruction in real time. They moved to the edge of the bed, closer to the camera. Close enough that I could see Marlowe's face clearly. Her expression wasn't guilty or conflicted or torn. She looked happy. Genuinely, completely happy. More present in that moment with him than she'd been with me in years. That hurt worse than the physical act. The sex I could maybe forgive, could maybe write off as a mistake, a moment of weakness. But her joy? Her complete investment in this betrayal? That was unforgivable. My phone buzzed. A text from Marlowe. Hope work's going okay. Miss you. The audacity of it, sending that message while Grayson was literally in our bedroom, was so absurd it almost made me laugh. Almost. Instead, I felt something cold settle into my chest, something hard and sharp that might have been rage or grief or the death of love. Maybe all three. I typed back, miss you too. Might be even later than I thought. Don't wait up. Gave them more time. What? Because I needed to see how far this would go? Because I wanted it to hurt so much I'd have no choice but to feel it fully, to stop making excuses, to stop blaming myself? I watched for another 10 minutes before I couldn't take any more. Turned off the app, sat in the dark car, listened to my own breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth like I was in labor trying to birth some new version of myself. The man who drove home from this parking garage wouldn't be the same man who drove to work this morning. That version died somewhere between seeing that first message and watching the video. What emerged in his place remained to be seen. I started the car again. Drove but not home. Couldn't go there yet. Couldn't walk through that door and pretend everything was normal while my sheets probably still smelled like them, while evidence of their betrayal stained every surface. Instead, I drove to the only place that made sense. Derek's house. He answered on the third knock, took one look at my face and stepped aside without asking questions. Led me to his kitchen, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, sat across from me at the table and waited. I need to tell you something, I said, and my voice sounded strange, distant, like it was coming from underwater. And you're going to think I'm the stupidest man alive. You might be right. I told him everything. The barbecue, the bet, the test, Grayson's pursuit, Marlowe's response, the lies, the deleted messages, the secure chat app, tonight's planned betrayal. The video. Derek's expression moved through phases. Disbelief. Anger. Pity. He refilled both glasses, drained his, refilled it again. You set this up, he said finally, not a question, a statement. You literally gave another man permission to seduce your wife. I nodded. I thought she'd say no. I thought she'd shut him down and I'd be proven right. I thought my marriage was stronger than everyone else's. Derek shook his head slowly. Your marriage might have been. Past tense. But you tested it. You questioned it. You turned it into a game. And now you're surprised she played along? His words hit like punches. What do I do now? I asked. Do. He laughed, bitter and sharp. Man, you burn it all down. There's no coming back from this. But was he right? Could I forgive her? Could we rebuild from these ashes? Did I even want to? These questions circled my brain like vultures waiting for something to die completely. I stayed at Derek's until past midnight, drinking too much, talking too much, rehashing every moment of our marriage, looking for signs I'd missed. They were everywhere once I looked properly. Her growing distance over the past year. Arguments that started over nothing and escalated too quickly. Conversations where we talked at each other instead of to each other. We'd been falling apart slowly and I'd been too arrogant to notice. Finally, Derek called me an Uber. Don't drive like this. Don't go home like this. Get a hotel. Sleep. Deal with this tomorrow when you're sober and can think straight. Sound advice that I immediately ignored. I took the Uber home. Stood outside my own house like a stranger, looking at the windows, wondering what scene I'd find inside. Grayson's car was gone. Lights off. Everyone asleep or pretending to be. I used my key quietly, slipped inside, left my shoes by the door. The house smelled normal. No evidence of what had occurred here hours ago. Marlo had cleaned up, erased the physical traces of her betrayal, probably sprayed air freshener and changed the sheets and made everything look perfect for my return. I walked upstairs, each step creaking slightly in the silent house. Our bedroom door was open. She was in bed, curled on her side, breathing deeply. Actually asleep or faking. I couldn't tell anymore. Couldn't trust my read on anything related to her. I didn't get in bed. Couldn't. Instead, I grabbed a pillow and went to the guest room. Told myself it was because I smelled like whiskey and didn't want to disturb her. Told myself it was because I needed space to think. But really, I couldn't lie next to her. Couldn't share that space where hours earlier she'd been with him. The bed in the guest room was harder, less comfortable, but at least it was honest. At least I knew exactly who'd been in it last. Sleep didn't come. I lay there replaying the video in my mind, watching my wife choose someone else, watching my best friend betray me, watching the life I'd built crumble because I'd been too proud to simply trust what I had. Dawn crept through the window, gray and unwelcoming. Somewhere in the house, Marlo's alarm went off. I heard her moving around, getting ready for another day of lies. And I had to decide what came next. Morning came with false normalcy. Marlo knocked on the guest room door around 7, peeked her head in with manufactured concern on her face. You okay? Why'd you sleep in here? I sat up, my head pounding from whiskey and lack of sleep, my mouth tasting like regret and rage. Came home late. Didn't want to wake you. She smiled, relieved. That's sweet. Want some coffee? Sweet. That word coming from her mouth after what she'd done made my stomach turn. But I followed her downstairs, watched her pour 2 cups like we were a normal couple on a normal Friday morning, like she hadn't destroyed us the night before. How was work? She asked, adding cream to my coffee exactly how I liked it, a gesture that now felt like mockery. Long, frustrating. Server issues. The lies came easier now that I'd learned from the master. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of meals, and I studied her face looking for guilt. For remorse. For any sign that she felt the weight of what she'd done. Nothing. She sipped her coffee, scrolled through her phone, asked if I wanted eggs for breakfast. An Oscar-worthy performance of the devoted wife. I'm meeting Grayson for lunch today, she said casually, and I nearly choked on my coffee. The audacity. The absolute nerve to sit across from me and announce plans to see him again, 12 hours after he'd been in our bed. Oh yeah. I managed, my voice surprisingly steady. Where at? She named a restaurant downtown, one of those trendy places with small portions and big prices. He's been such a good friend lately. Really helping me through some stuff. She paused, looked at me directly. You don't mind, do you? This was my moment. I could end it right here. Tell her I knew everything. Show her the video. Confront her with the evidence and watch her try to explain her way out of the inexplicable. But something stopped me. Curiosity maybe. Or that same twisted impulse that made me agree to this test in the first place. I wanted to see how far she'd take this. How long she could maintain the charade. How many more lies she could tell before she slipped up or felt genuine remorse? No, I heard myself say. I don't mind. Tell Grayson I said hi. Her face relaxed. You're the best, you know that? So understanding. So trusting. She came around the table, kissed the top of my head. I love you so much. The words hit like poison darts. Each one landing, each one burning. I love you. She said it so easily. Meant it, maybe, in whatever twisted way she'd convinced herself this was all okay. People were complicated like that. Could love and betray simultaneously. Could be genuine and deceitful in the same breath. I was learning that lesson the hardest way possible. She left for work around 8, kissed me goodbye, told me to have a good day. I watched her drive away, then immediately pulled up the security camera app. Scrolled back through last night's footage, made sure the video had saved properly. It had. Crystal clear evidence of my wife's infidelity and my best friend's betrayal. I sent it to myself again, 3 different emails, made sure it existed in multiple places. Insurance. Ammunition. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that this was really happening, that my instincts had been right even if my pride had set the whole nightmare in motion. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I called Grayson. He answered on the second ring, his voice careful. Law. Amen. What's up? What's up? Like we were still friends. Like he hadn't been screwing my wife in my bed 12 hours ago. Want to grab lunch today? I asked. Around noon? Silence. Long enough that I knew he was calculating, trying to figure out if this was a trap. Actually I've got plans. Maybe tomorrow? I smiled at the phone. Cancel them. I need to talk to you. Important. The Usual Place. The Usual Place was a dive bar near our old college campus. A place we'd spent countless afternoons in our 20s, solving the world's problems over cheap beer and cheaper wings. Seemed fitting to end our friendship in the same place it had flourished. Okay, he said slowly. Noon. I'll be there. I hung up without saying goodbye. Spent the next few hours getting my affairs in order. Called my lawyer, a guy I'd gone to high school with, asked about divorce proceedings. What I'd need. How it worked. He tried to offer counseling advice, suggested couples therapy, but I cut him off. Just tell me the logistics. I need to know my options. By 11:30 I was dressed and ready. Looked at myself in the mirror, this man I barely recognized anymore, worn down by betrayal and bad decisions. I wore jeans and a t-shirt, wanted to look casual, non-threatening. Didn't want Grayson to suspect this was an ambush. My phone buzzed. Marlo. Running a few minutes late but headed to lunch soon. Love you. She thought she was meeting Grayson. He thought he was meeting me. Neither of them knew they were about to walk into a confrontation. I'd set the stage perfectly. Maybe I'd learned something from their deception after all. I arrived at the bar first. Took a booth in the back corner, ordered a beer I didn't intend to drink. Waited. Grayson showed up right at noon, looking nervous, his eyes scanning the room before landing on me. He slid into the booth across from me, ordered a beer from the passing waitress, tried to smile. So, what's so important? I didn't answer immediately. Let the silence stretch, watched him squirm. Finally, I pulled out my phone, opened the video, turned it so he could see. Hit play. The color drained from his face. All pretense evaporated. He looked from the screen to me, back to the screen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish drowning in air. Law, I can explain. I stopped the video. Can you? Because I'd love to hear the explanation for sleeping with my wife in my bed. In my house. After I specifically asked you to test her faithfulness, not destroy my marriage. He ran his hands through his hair, panic replacing smugness. You told me to pursue her. You gave me permission. I gave you permission to test her. To see if she'd stay loyal. Not to actually sleep with her if she failed. Not to turn my marriage into your personal entertainment. I leaned forward. When exactly did this stop being a test and start being real? He couldn't meet my eyes. It just happened, man. We connected. She was lonely. You were distant. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I laughed, sharp and humorless. Nothing was supposed to go this far. But here we are. The door to the bar opened. Marlo walked in, looking at her phone, searching for Grayson. When she saw us sitting together, her face went through every emotion at once. Confusion. Recognition. Terror. She froze in the doorway, a deer in headlights, understanding dawning that she'd walked into a trap. I gestured to the empty space beside Grayson. Join us. We were just talking about you. She approached slowly, her eyes never leaving mine, trying to read my expression, trying to figure out what I knew and how much damage control she needed. She slid into the booth. Three of us sitting there like this was a normal lunch among friends, except the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Lawson, she started, but I held up my hand. I know everything. The coffee dates, the lies, the secret app. Last night. I placed my phone on the table, the video paused on a frame that left no doubt what they'd been doing. I have evidence. Multiple copies. So don't insult me by trying to deny it. Tears filled her eyes instantly. I can explain, she whispered, echoing Grayson's words, like they'd rehearsed this. Like there was any explanation that would make this okay. Please let me explain. I leaned back, gestured for her to continue. I'm listening. Explain how you slept with my best friend in our bed. Explain how you lied to my face this morning. Explain how you were about to meet him for lunch an hour after telling me you loved me. The tears spilled over, running down her cheeks, her hands shaking on the table. You pushed me away first, she said, her voice breaking. You stopped seeing me. Stopped caring. I felt invisible in my own marriage. And then Grayson was there, paying attention, making me feel valued again. She looked at Grayson, then back to me. It started innocent. Just talking. But it felt so good to be noticed, to be desired, to matter to someone. I know that doesn't excuse it. I know I should have talked to you instead. But I was so lonely, Lawson. So desperately lonely. Her words hit somewhere deep, in a place I'd been avoiding. Because she was right. I had pushed her away. Not physically but emotionally. Got comfortable, complacent, stopped putting in effort. Took her for granted because I was so sure she'd always be there. My arrogance hadn't just led to the test. It had created the conditions that made her vulnerable to Grayson's advances in the first place. We'd both failed. Just in different ways. But then Grayson spoke, and whatever sympathy I'd started feeling evaporated. She wanted it, man. She pursued me as much as I pursued her. Don't let her play victim here. Marlo turned to him, shock on her face. What? You're the one who kept pushing. Who suggested the hotel rooms. Who said you were falling in love with me. Well, the word hung in the air between us, heavy and destructive. He'd told her he loved her. This wasn't just physical betrayal. They'd built something emotional, something that threatened to replace what she and I had built over 8 years. Get out, I said to Grayson, my voice low and dangerous. Get out before I do something we'll all regret. He looked at Marlo, some unspoken communication passing between them, then slid out of the booth. I'm sorry, he said, though I couldn't tell who he was apologizing to. For what it's worth, I never meant for it to go this far. He left, and then it was just Marlo and me sitting across from each other in a bar that smelled like stale beer and broken dreams. What happens now? She asked quietly. And that was the question, wasn't it? What happens after everything falls apart? After trust shatters? After love gets tested past its breaking point? We sat in that booth for hours. People came and went around us, the lunch rush fading into quiet afternoon, but we stayed locked in our corner, dissecting the corpse of our marriage. Marlo told me everything, every detail I didn't want to hear but needed to know. How it started with those coffee dates I already knew about. How Grayson made her laugh, really laugh for the first time in months. How one afternoon he'd kissed her in his car and instead of stopping him, she'd kissed back. How the first time they slept together was in a hotel room downtown, and she'd cried afterward, not from regret but from relief. Relief at feeling something again. Anything. I felt dead inside our marriage, she said, her coffee long cold, her eyes red from crying. Like I was going through motions. Wake up, kiss you goodbye, work, come home, make dinner, watch TV, go to bed. Every day the same. Every day feeling less real. I wanted to argue to defend our marriage but couldn't. Because I'd felt it too. That slow drift into comfortable numbness. We'd stopped being partners and became roommates. Stopped making love and started having sex. Stopped talking about dreams and started discussing grocery lists. When did we lose each other? I asked, and it was a genuine question. I couldn't pinpoint the moment. I don't know, she admitted. Slowly. Then all at once. Maybe after the miscarriage. Maybe before. We were so focused on surviving that loss we forgot to actually live after it. The miscarriage. 3 years ago. A baby we'd wanted desperately, lost at 16 weeks. We'd grieved together but also separately, built walls to protect ourselves that somehow became walls between us. She wasn't wrong. That loss had changed us and we'd never talked about it. Just buried it and pretended we were fine. I should have talked to you, she said. Should have told you I was struggling. Should have fought for us instead of running to someone else. She looked at me directly, no more hiding. But Lawson, you should have noticed. Should have asked. Should have cared enough to see that I was drowning right in front of you. We were both right. Both wrong. both guilty of different crimes against our marriage. I'd neglected her emotionally. She'd betrayed me physically. Which was worse? Did it matter? The result was the same. Destruction. And the test, I said, finally addressing the elephant that had been present from the beginning. Did you know that I'd asked Grayson to pursue you? She shook her head. Not at first. You told me about a month in. Said you'd given him permission to test my faithfulness. I was furious. Felt like an experiment. Like you didn't actually trust me, you just wanted proof. She laughed bitterly. But by then I'd already developed feelings for him. So I thought, fine. If Lawson wants to test me, I'll fail spectacularly. I'll show him what happens when you treat your wife like a hypothesis. Revenge. Part of her betrayal had been revenge. Punishment for my arrogance. For testing her instead of trusting her. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it explained it. We'd both let our pride destroy us. Mine in believing she needed testing. Hers in proving I was wrong to test her. Two people who loved each other so busy defending their egos that they forgot to defend their marriage. It was almost poetic. Definitely tragic. I can't forgive this, I said finally. I want to. Part of me wants to find a way through. But every time I close my eyes, I see that video. See you with him in our bed. How do I unsee that? She nodded, tears flowing freely again. You can't. I know you can't. I wouldn't be able to either. We sat in silence, acknowledging the end, mourning what we'd been and what we'd never be again. Outside the bar window, life continued. People walked by, laughing, holding hands, going about their days with no idea that inside this building, two people were watching their world collapse. I'll move out, she said eventually. Stay with my sister. Give you space. We can figure out the legal stuff later. Legal stuff. Divorce. The word neither of us had said yet, but both of us knew was coming. What about Grayson? I asked. Is that real? Do you love him? She thought about it, really thought, and I appreciated her honesty. I don't know. Maybe I love what he represents. Escape. Excitement. Someone who sees me. But real love? The kind we had? I don't think so. I think I used him as much as he used me. We walked out of that bar together one last time. Stood on the sidewalk in afternoon sun that felt too bright, too cheerful for the moment. I'm sorry, she said. For all of it. For not fighting for us. For choosing the easy escape over the hard work. I'm so sorry, Lawson. I believed her. Could see in her eyes that she meant it. But sorry didn't fix broken. Didn't rewind time. Didn't undo betrayal. I'm sorry too, I said. For taking you for granted. For testing you instead of treasuring you. For my part in this disaster. She reached for my hand, squeezed it once, let go. We were good once, weren't we? I nodded. We were great. For a long time. She smiled sadly. I'll remember that part. The good years. Before we broke each other. She walked to her car and I watched her go, this woman I'd promised forever to, knowing I was watching her walk out of my life permanently. The pain was sharp and dull simultaneously, cutting and numbing, present and distant. Grief is strange like that. Feels like everything and nothing all at once. I drove home to our empty house. Walked through rooms that echoed with memories now tainted by betrayal. Our wedding photo on the mantel, both of us grinning, so young and sure. Vacation pictures from better times. The couch where we'd spent countless evenings. The kitchen where we'd cooked together. Every surface held ghosts of who we'd been. I couldn't stay here. Wouldn't. This house wasn't home anymore. It was a crime scene. I called a realtor that afternoon. Listed the house. Started looking for apartments. Began the process of dismantling a life I'd spent 8 years building. It was mechanical, methodical, necessary. Keep moving forward or drown in what's behind. I chose forward. Didn't have much choice. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from Grayson I didn't read. Calls from Marlo I didn't answer. I needed silence. Needed space to figure out who I was outside of this destroyed marriage. That night, sleeping alone in the guest room one last time, I thought about lessons learned the hard way. Never test what you should treasure. Never let pride replace trust. Never take for granted that love will survive neglect. Pay attention to the person beside you before someone else does. Fight for your marriage before it's too late. Simple lessons I'd ignored because I thought I knew better. Thought I was special. Thought my marriage was immune to the problems plaguing everyone else. I wasn't special. My marriage wasn't immune. And now I was just another divorced guy with a story about how it all fell apart. Another cautionary tale. Another statistic. The only difference was I'd set the dominoes in motion myself. I tested my wife's faithfulness and discovered the real test was whether our marriage could survive my arrogance. It couldn't. We failed together. 6 months passed like a fever dream. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in October, both of us sitting across from each other in a lawyer's office, signing papers that ended what we'd once believed was forever. Marlo looked different. Thinner. Tired. She'd cut her hair short, changed her style, become someone I didn't quite recognize. Or maybe I'd never really known her at all. That was the thought that haunted me most. 8 years together and we'd remained mysteries to each other, hiding our truths behind comfortable lies. She and Grayson didn't last. Turns out relationships built on betrayal don't have strong foundations. Who knew? They made it about 6 weeks after our separation before the excitement wore off and reality set in. They had nothing in common beyond mutual destruction of my life. When that stopped being enough, they had nothing. She told me this during one of our few civil conversations, coffee at a neutral location to discuss dividing remaining assets. I think I loved the idea of him more than him, she admitted. The escape. The validation. Not the actual person. I didn't feel vindicated hearing this. Didn't feel anything really. By then I'd gone numb to news about Marlo and Grayson. They existed in my past, characters in a story I was trying to stop telling myself. Grayson had reached out a few times, long rambling apologies I never responded to. Eventually he stopped trying. I heard through mutual friends he'd moved to another state. Starting over somewhere people didn't know him as the guy who betrayed his best friend. Coward's way out. But maybe we all do that in our own ways. Run from what we've broken instead of facing it. I'd started therapy in month 2. Court-mandated wasn't quite accurate, but my lawyer suggested it strongly. Show the judge you're working on yourself, he'd said. So I went. Sat in an office with a woman named Dr. Patricia Chin who asked uncomfortable questions and didn't let me hide behind easy answers. What did you learn from this? She asked in one session. I wanted to say I learned people can't be trusted. Marriages don't last, love isn't enough. But she pushed deeper. What did you learn about yourself? That question broke something open. What did I learn about myself? That I was arrogant. That I valued being right over being happy. That I could be so focused on protecting my pride I'd sacrifice my marriage. That I'd rather test my wife than trust her. That I'd been emotionally absent long before physical betrayal entered the picture. That I'd taken a good woman for granted until she stopped being good to me. That I'd been a bad husband pretending to be a good one because I never questioned my own behavior. I learned I was part of the problem, I told Dr. Chin. Maybe the biggest part. I set the whole thing in motion. My arrogance. My test. My neglect. Marlo made her own choices, but I created the conditions for those choices. Dr. Chin nodded. That's growth. Taking accountability without drowning in guilt. Both things are true. You made mistakes and she made choices. Neither excuses the other. It was simple and profound. Both of us had broken us. That was the truth I needed to accept. I dated a little. Nothing serious. Coffee with a woman from work. Dinner with someone I met at the gym. A dating app that mostly made me feel old and tired. None of it stuck. I wasn't ready. Still processing. Still healing. Still figuring out who I was outside of married Lawson. That identity had defined me for nearly a decade. Removing it left a hole I needed to fill with something healthier than another relationship. So I stopped dating. Focused on myself. Started running. Took up cooking. Joined a book club. Did all those things single people do to pass time and pretend they're not lonely. But I was lonely. Desperately so. Not for Marlo specifically, but for companionship. For someone to share mundane moments with. For inside jokes and comfortable silence and knowing someone well enough to predict their order at restaurants. I miss being known. Being part of a team. Having a person. The divorce hadn't just cost me my wife. It cost me my best friend, my shared history, my entire social circle. Mutual friends picked sides or faded away. I was starting from scratch at 38 years old. Exhausting didn't begin to cover it. Then one random Saturday in April, I was at a farmer's market buying overpriced vegetables I'd probably forget to cook, and I saw them. Marlo and Grayson. Together. Again. Apparently they'd reconciled. Worked through their issues. Decided to give it another shot. They didn't see me, too absorbed in picking out tomatoes or whatever, laughing about something private. And I waited for the rage. The betrayal. The hurt. But it didn't come. I felt nothing. Maybe peace. Maybe indifference. Maybe acceptance that their story continued without me, and that was okay. I left without confronting them. Went home to my small apartment that still didn't quite feel like home. Made dinner for one. Ate in front of the TV watching shows nobody else cared about. Went to bed alone in sheets I'd picked out myself, in a bed that held no memories except my own. It was quiet, simple, uncomplicated. Not happy exactly but not miserable either. Somewhere in between. Existing. Recovering. Learning to be okay with solitary. That night I got a message. Not from Marlo or Grayson, but from an old college friend I hadn't talked to in years. Hey man, heard about the divorce. Sorry you went through that. Want to grab a beer sometime? Catch up. It was simple. Ordinary. An offer of friendship with no ulterior motive. And it reminded me that life continues. People move on. New connections form. The world doesn't end just because your marriage did. I typed back, yeah, I'd like that. And meant it. The next morning I got another unexpected message. This one from Marlo. A long text I almost didn't read, finger hovering over the delete button before curiosity won. She wrote about regret. About therapy she'd started. About understanding now what she couldn't see then. About how Grayson wasn't the answer any more than I had been the problem. About how she'd been running from herself and blamed our marriage for feelings that were internal. About how she was sorry, truly sorry, not just for the betrayal but for her part in our slow deterioration. You deserved better, she wrote. Not a perfect husband but a faithful wife. I couldn't be that then. Maybe I can be it for someone else someday. I hope you find someone who gives you what I couldn't. Who sees you and chooses you every day. Who fights for you instead of running when things get hard. You deserve that, Lawson. Despite everything, you deserve happiness. I read it 3 times. Cried a little, not from sadness but from release. This was closure. Real closure. Not the lawyer-mandated, court-ordered kind, but the emotional resolution I'd been seeking without knowing it. She'd grown. I'd grown. We'd both learned from our destruction. That had to count for something. I wrote back short and simple. Thank you. I hope you find your happiness too. We both deserve peace. And I meant it. That afternoon a letter arrived. Not email, actual handwritten letter, envelope and stamp and everything. From Grayson. I almost threw it away unopened, but something made me tear it open, unfold the pages, read his scratchy handwriting. He wrote about guilt. About how our friendship was the real casualty of his actions. About how he'd betrayed not just my marriage but 20 years of brotherhood. About how he understood if I never forgave him but hoped someday I might at least understand. I was jealous, he wrote, of your marriage, your certainty, your happiness. I wanted what you had and convinced myself taking it was somehow justified. It wasn't. I destroyed my best friend to feel important to someone. I'm sorry. Truly. Deeply. Permanently sorry. His apology didn't fix anything. Didn't undo damage. Didn't restore our friendship. But it helped. Knowing he'd faced what he'd done, owned it, carried it. We were both carrying our guilt, our lessons, our regrets. Maybe that was enough. Maybe forgiveness would come eventually. Or maybe it wouldn't. Either way, I could move forward knowing the people who'd hurt me were also hurting. We're also learning. We're also trying to be better. That created a strange symmetry. A closure to the chaos. 2 years after the divorce, I met someone. Her name was Elena, and she was nothing like Marlo. Where Marlo had been quiet and reserved, Elena was loud and expressive. Where Marlo avoided conflict, Elena confronted everything head-on. Where Marlo had slowly drifted away, Elena was aggressively present in my face, demanding authenticity. It was terrifying. It was exactly what I needed. She knew my history. I told her everything on our 3rd date, figured if my baggage was going to scare her off, better sooner than later. So you tested your wife's faithfulness and she failed, Elena said, sipping wine across from me at the restaurant. And you blame yourself. I nodded, waiting for judgment. Instead, she leaned forward. You made a stupid mistake driven by ego. She made a choice driven by hurt. You both failed each other. But here's my question. What did you learn? I'd been in therapy long enough to have an answer. That pride destroys what love builds. That you can't test what you should treasure. That being right matters less than being present. That I'd rather have a messy, imperfect relationship where we communicate than a perfect-looking one where we hide. Elena smiled. Good answer. Because I'm messy. I'm loud. I'm too much for most people. And I will call you out when you're being distant or arrogant or taking me for granted. I don't play games. I don't do tests. If we're going to do this, we do it honestly or not at all. I fell a little bit in love with her in that moment. Not the desperate, needy love I'd had with Marlo toward the end. Something steadier. Built on truth instead of comfort. Built on growth instead of habit. We dated slowly, carefully, both of us carrying damage from previous relationships. both of us determined not to repeat old patterns. She met Dr. Chen eventually, came to a session with me at my therapist's suggestion. I want to understand how to support you without enabling old behaviors, Elena explained. I want to know what warning signs to watch for. Dr. Chen looked between us and smiled. This is what healthy looks like. Communication. Intentionality. Awareness. You're both choosing this relationship with open eyes. Elena reached for my hand. I'm choosing him. Every day. Even on days he's difficult. Even when he gets in his own head. I'm choosing us. And she meant it. I proposed a year later. Nothing fancy. We were hiking, reached the summit of a trail we'd done a dozen times, and I just knew. Pulled out the ring I'd been carrying for 2 weeks waiting for the perfect moment. This isn't perfect, I said. I'm not perfect, but I'm choosing you. Every single day. In the mess and the beauty and everything in between. Will you marry me? She cried, laughed, said yes before I'd even finished asking. We got married in a small ceremony, just close friends and family. No big production. No pressure to perform perfect romance. Just 2 people promising to keep choosing each other. Marlo sent a card. Simple, elegant. Congratulations. Wishing you all the happiness you deserve. No return address. No request to reconnect. Just acknowledgement and kindness. I appreciated it more than she probably knew. It meant she'd moved on too. Found her own peace. That's all I could hope for. Elena read the card, looked at me carefully. You okay? I nodded. Yeah, I am. She's part of my past. You're my present and future. I'm more than okay. The lessons from my first marriage informed my second. I didn't take Elena for granted. Didn't let comfort become complacency. Didn't stop dating my wife just because I'd married her. We had weekly check-ins, awkward at first, where we talked about our relationship. What was working? What wasn't? What we needed from each other. Sometimes these conversations were hard. Sometimes they revealed uncomfortable truths. But we had them anyway because hard conversations were better than silent resentment. I felt ignored today, Elena said one evening. You were on your phone during dinner. Old me would have gotten defensive, made excuses. New me paused, really heard her, owned it. You're right. I'm sorry. Work stress isn't an excuse. You deserve my attention. She nodded, satisfied not because I'd groveled but because I'd acknowledged her without deflection. That was intimacy. Not perfect behavior but honest accountability. Not never messing up but taking responsibility when you did. I ran into Grayson once, 2 years into my marriage with Elena. A conference in Chicago, both of us in the same hotel lobby, recognition hitting simultaneously. We stood there awkwardly, years of history and hurt between us. Finally he spoke. You look good, Law. Happy. I was surprised by how neutral I felt. No anger. No residual betrayal. Just acknowledgement of shared past. I'm happy. You. He shrugged. Getting there. Therapy helps. Understanding why I did what I did helps. Not repeating those mistakes helps. We talked for 20 minutes. Not friends, never friends again, but not enemies either. Just 2 men who'd learned hard lessons and were trying to be better. I forgive you, I said as we parted ways. Not for him, for me. Because carrying that anger was exhausting. Because forgiveness didn't mean forgetting or reconciling. It meant releasing the weight. He looked shocked, then grateful. Thank you. I don't deserve it, but thank you. I shook my head. Maybe you don't. But I deserve peace. So I'm choosing it. We shook hands, went separate directions, and I felt lighter. Forgiveness was for me, not him. That was the lesson I'd been too stubborn to learn before. Elena asked about it that night when I called. How do you feel? Always her question. Always checking in. Free, I said honestly. Like I finally closed a chapter I've been rereading for years. She was quiet then. I'm proud of you. Growth is hard. You're doing it anyway. That was love. Now, 5 years past that 4th of July barbecue that changed everything, I'm a different person. Not perfect. Still learning. Still making mistakes. But aware now. Present. Intentional about my relationships. I treasure instead of testing. I communicate instead of assuming. I fight for what matters instead of taking it for granted. These seem like simple lessons, but they cost me everything to learn. Cost me my first marriage, my best friend, my certainty about who I was. But they gave me something too. Humility. Self-awareness. A second chance at love with someone who sees all my flaws and chooses me anyway. A marriage built on honesty instead of performance. A life that's smaller but more authentic. I don't have all the answers. Don't claim to. But I know this. Never test what you should treasure. Never let pride replace trust. Never assume love survives neglect. Pay attention to the person beside you before someone else does. Fight for your relationship when it's struggling, not after it's dead. These lessons came from pain, from failure, from watching my arrogance destroy something beautiful. I share them not as an expert but as someone who learned the hardest way possible. If my story saves one marriage, prevents one stupid test, encourages one person to communicate instead of assume, then maybe all that pain had purpose. Maybe my failure becomes someone else's wisdom. Maybe destruction becomes redemption, becomes hope. Elena's in the kitchen now making dinner, singing off-key to music I don't recognize. She turns, sees me watching, smiles. You okay? Always asking. Always checking. Always present. Yeah, I say, meaning it completely. I'm good. And I am. Not because life is perfect or marriage is easy or I've figured everything out. But because I'm here. Present. Grateful. Choosing this life and this woman every single day. That's enough. That's everything. The story of my first marriage is one of pride and betrayal, arrogance and pain. But it's also one of growth and second chances, forgiveness and hope. I can't change what happened. Can't undo the test or the betrayal or the destruction that followed. But I can learn from it. Can be better because of it. Can help others avoid my mistakes. That's redemption. Not erasing the past but building a better future from its lessons. So here's what I want you to take from my story. Your relationship isn't a hypothesis to be tested. It's a living thing that requires constant care and attention. Don't let pride make you stupid. Don't let comfort make you complacent. Don't wait until it's broken to try fixing it. Communicate. Stay present. Keep choosing each other. Fight for what matters while you still have it. And if you lose it, learn from it. Let it change you. Use the pain to become someone better, someone wiser, someone humble enough to know they don't have all the answers. That's my story. That's my lesson. That's the price I paid for arrogance and the wisdom I bought with that price. I hope it helps someone out there. I hope my failure prevents yours. And I hope you never have to learn what I learned by losing what I lost. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever tested a relationship? Have you learned lessons from betrayal? Share your story. Your thoughts might help someone else who's struggling. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We share real stories about love, loss, and everything in between. Your support means we can keep bringing you these honest, emotional journeys. Don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Sometimes the stories that hurt the most teach us the lessons we need the most. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. Until next time, choose love, choose communication, and choose each other every single day.